Greetings, colleagues. Welcome back to term 2 to 4. This is the new normal for life skills, PSW, CA, and PE. And colleagues, please be informed that all schools will receive grade 6 life skills CD and grade 4 and 5 USB from the province. Next. The whole presentation outlines all amendments for PSW, PE, and creative arts. The purpose is to make sure that only the key topics are taught. We want to make sure that colleagues understand that policy has not changed but amended. As always, colleagues, there is a high expectation within the subject to address all issues pertaining to the pandemic. It was therefore necessary for the team of all stakeholders to make sure that as we streamline all topics, we don't leave out the core information that learners should know in each term per grade. That is grade and age appropriate. Therefore, a huge task lies upon us colleagues on how well we present lessons and worksheets to the learners. From the Office of the Minister and the Director General, Mr. Muweli, it was said we life skills teachers are the team that will ensure that our society deals with the pandemic accordingly in detail.
When you look, you follow slide 1 up to 12, it will give you the whole summary of the content overview within the phase. Grade 4, grade 5, and grade 6. And the team made sure that the topics, or within the key topics, when it indicates basic hygiene principles, maybe it says issues of COVID-19, colleagues, we need to make sure that that particular topic, we don't just teach it in passing. We emphasize the issues of COVID-19 at that current state. If you look now, according to this recording, myself and Pechuna were recording this mediation. We are at level 3, ne? Is it level 3, for example? Now, you may find that by the time you receive the documentation, or by the time you look at the content for term 3, the country will be at level 2. Then you need to emphasize the issues of the current state of affairs within the country. And it should be done, colleagues, according to the age, the grade, and that particular time where we are. Don't find yourself teaching things, all of them at once, where we end up confusing our learners. We just have to take them through. Remember, colleagues, they know what is going on from at home, and they know from the engagement with their peers, what is it that they need to do. What we need to have in mind as teachers is to make sure that that information does not become misinterpreted, and then learners end up bullying each other, doing all the stuff. Colleagues, I cannot go through each particular slide. If you look at grade 6, let us look at grade 6 now, because this is let me just pause a bit so that I go back to a previous slide. This is what I wanted to do here. Maybe I need. Now, colleagues, as we are talking on the content of the overview for the phase, because I wanted to emphasize the issues on each subtopic. If you look at grade 6, on topic 1, creating 2D, learners are supposed to an extent to include national environment, further develop use of media and technique, the formal introduction of monochromatic colors. And then at this level, we introduce conscious use of balance and further develop the use of design principles, lettering, and/or pattern making, including radiating patterns, awareness of composition. Now, I'm sure my colleague Upechunia, when she talks on assessment, she will emphasize. But here, my duty now is to say to you colleagues, just ensure and make sure that when learners are working with those material, it can be paper, it can be crayons, it can be whatever media that they will be using, and the space that they are working on, that space must be sanitized at all times. The material must be sanitized. Those are the things that we need to be continuously be reminding our learners to be doing in the classroom within the period of life skills. Ba sanitizer, ba etsa everything. Re a koka ena. Opposite akere. So it goes up to page 12.
Korea. And the next page. Yeah, pause. No, yeah. Next page. Next.
Colleagues, like I said, it goes up to page 12. Now we go to the next part, which is the amendments to the annual teaching plan. I think I've already alluded to the fact that the content within which COVID-19 hygiene and psychosocial issues can be infused, then brought forward to term 2. Colleagues, hygiene principles integrated within the content wherever possible. And COVID-19 issues must be integrated within the content wherever possible. I'm sure this emphasizes the importance of the subject within the current state of affairs. This is a serious one, colleagues, the pandemic. We need also to be sympathetic, pathetic when we address these issues. If I can take you back to the issues when we were dealing with HIV and AIDS, when it started, we were dealing with learners that were infected, some of them were affected one way or the other. So now we need to be talking to these issues as sensibly as possible, because whilst we're dealing with hygienic principles and psychosocial issues, we need to be addressing issues of bullying in passing as well, colleagues, so that we don't separate the two, because learners at some point they will feel bullied, and some of them learners are learners, they will end up saying, yeah, but your mask is not the same as ours because it has COVID, and then you've decided to change and not use the other one that was provided. So we need to emphasize those issues. The subject is allocated time according to the content topics for term 2, 3 and 4 for 2020 in the academic year, colleagues. Just make sure that you look at each lesson plan according to the number of weeks that are provided in each term. And a portion of other topics was dealt with in term 1. So you need not to go back. You just have to move forward, look at what should be taught in that a specific term. Other content is not going to be dealt with in depth because it's not as important as it's supposed to be according to the current pandemic. Colleagues, you will read per term the summary and the content topic, what was amended, what is included, and the folders that will be provided will have all the documentation. And I've also emphasized for the topic development of self, the issues of bullying, social responsibility, gender stereotyping, sexism and abuse. You will also go through the lesson plan and the worksheets that are provided. We also have cultural rites of passage that also will be dealt with in week 5 to 7 in term 4. But I want us colleagues to look at where we are starting so that we don't confuse issues. I know when we started, myself and Petunia will say, look at the policy document, then the ATP, then the lesson plan. But now, colleagues, look at the summary that is given of the topics, and then you look at the weeks that we have in this particular term, and what is it that has to be emphasized. And what has to be emphasized, it's the amendment within the topics. This content, like for grade 6, would be taught in term 4, week 4 and 5, in the place of communicable diseases. That has been moved now to term 2, week 5 to 7, to strengthen the awareness of COVID-19. So that's how we worked around the topics. What was supposed to be taught in term 4 can now be taught in term 2, so that we take learners through the process of understanding how to deal with the pandemic. Now, I would actually allow Petunia to talk on the creative arts summary for term 2, so that you know exactly what should be assessed, what should not be assessed. And remember, colleagues, in term 2, we are not going to utilize or teach PE. PE will be taught only in term 3 and term 4, because now, colleagues, the level at which the country is at now, it's level 3. It does not allow us to have that integration, the touching, and we need to be avoiding all those things. We're still isolating. So now the hour for PE will be used to teach creative arts and PSW. And we will not have the mid-year exam, and then final examination will be administered throughout the remaining terms. We will only have the final exam in term 4 for PSW only.
Colleagues, it's Petunia again. For creative arts, in term 2, we are going to teach only visual arts. Remember, colleagues, we have to utilize the time that we have only. So there's no need for us to teach performing arts. And then for term 3, we are only going to focus on visual art, and there will be formal assessment as well. But in term 2, there will be no formal assessment. Let me be clear, colleagues. Term 2, no formal assessment for creative arts. Only in term 3, which will be visual art, and then in term 4, which will be performing arts. Colleagues, as per new amendments, content for term 4 visual arts will be taught, for performing arts will be taught in term 2. No performing arts will be taught. Only the content of visual arts in term 4 will be taught in term 2. And then in term 4, performing arts will be taught, and visual arts will be taught in term 2 and 3 only. Again, the content of visual arts for term 4 will be taught, will be integrated in term 2. And then term 3 will be visual arts again, and then term 4 only performing arts. And only then in term 3 and 4 will be assessment. Colleagues, this is the summary of amendments of weighting of content topics. For physical education, we have 14 hours in grade 4. So it means we are going to teach PE in term 3 and 4 only. Term 3 and term 4 only. And then PSW will be taught term 2, term 3, and term 4. Those are the weightings for grade 4 and grade 5 and grade 6. Creative arts, term 2, term 3, term 4, those are the weightings. Contact time, according to the slide, as you see it there, colleagues. Total hours for grade 4, it will be 70, grade 5, 74, and then grade 6, 79. So please, colleagues, utilize the time according to the lesson plans and the worksheets that were given. Please, colleagues, adhere to the time frames.
This was done to increase the time that is allocated for PSW and the time that is allocated for creative arts. So in term 2, term 3, and term 4. But in term 2, you'll see that creative arts and PSW have now more hours than before. And colleagues, this is not just done to ignore the parts of physical education and training. It's just to be relevant to the time where we are, to avoid the touching and the social
observing social distancing. Right, colleagues, remember when we teach physical education in term 3, remember always 2 observe social distancing guidelines on adhering to COVID-19 regulations. Will need to be used and followed for physical education as well as for performing arts. So whatever you do for physical education, you're going to do it in performing arts in term 4. You follow and adhere social distancing guidelines for COVID-19 so that the learners will understand the importance of social distancing. Amendments for school-based assessment, SBA.
Learners should be given homework.
Colleagues, learners should be given all the time homeworks and classworks. For term 2, there will be no formal assessments, nothing, no written formal assessments for term 2. Make sure that you give them enough homework and enough classworks. For term 3 and term 4, the same. But for PSW, there will be a test for 30 marks. And formal assessment, practical for performing arts, not formal, practical assessment for performing arts, and then in term 3, practical assessment for visual arts. And then for PE, we'll always use that recording sheet, participation sheet all the time.
Examinations will be administered. No mid-year and final examinations will be administered throughout the remaining terms. Colleagues, this is to just make sure that learners are ready and are prepared accordingly in each grade to progress to the next grade. Physical education will only take place in term 3. I'm sure Petunia has touched on that one. Social distancing guidelines. You can just read and make sure that you understand.
There's the visual arts and performing arts summary, colleagues. I've touched on that. In conclusion,
colleagues, the grade 6 learners completed term 1 in 2020 of schooling before COVID-19 forced the closure of the schools. The ATP will be implemented during term 2 on the opening of schools. I'm sure this is the first week of July. COVID-19 issues were included in the ATP to conscientize learners on the pandemic gripping the whole world, and self-management, self-study skills, and preparation of learners to deal with the grief, emotions are dealt with in the ATP. Like we said, myself and Petunia, that when you address each subtopic or each key topic that has to touch on issues of COVID-19, you need to be to show empathy, colleagues, to have the understanding of what learners should be knowing at that particular time per grade. And we wish you all the best. And if you happen to have any questions, colleagues, you are free to phone us. We will try, myself and Petunia, to create the WhatsApp group for HODs of life skills within the phase with the contact details that we have from term 1. Our apologies if we happen to put you in the group and you are no longer the HOD of life skills. Just let us know, inform us, and understand that we are all a team and we will conquer, and this too shall pass.
This too shall pass, colleagues. Thank you, colleagues.